I can't believe I'm actually playing a Ryuga Gotoku game in an environment that I've actually been in.
What does that leave me as a player when I was more interested in the story? Why are you cheating your customers like this? I wasn't that motivated to finish it as much as the other titles in the series. Yokoyama knew this and did it anyway! Okay, I can finally say it for the record. 2024's Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth has been a game I was slowly anticipating over the years. Of course, the sequel to Yakuza Like a Dragon was coming, it was just a question of when and what they would do. All the Ryuga Gotoku games I've played, I've thoroughly enjoyed, and have given us a lot of the best moments in the franchise. Through the past few years for the channel, I wanted to do videos talking about what they would do for Like a Dragon 8, and as soon as I knew it, it was revealed and I already had to wait for it. I had very high expectations for this title, and in a way, I got my wishes granted. But in other ways, I was wishing just a little bit more from this title. First off, I did not hate it, don't get me wrong. Matter of fact, Infinite Wealth, with its content and moments of play, is the best in the franchise. Combat has been heavily improved from the previous entry, as the mechanics are more defined and streamlined. It still has the same turn-based combat from the previous entry, but it's more defined here. Small quality of life changes were made, like movement in combat. It only allows you to move in a set circle, but this allows for targeting and positioning of attacks and skills. Skills also tell you which area they will impact, so more visual clarity is given. It also comes into play with weapon usage, as the weapons in that area can be picked up to attack enemies, and sometimes they have elemental properties. Most of what you do in combat is the same, so if you have seen my previous video on Like a Dragon, then I'd just be recapping most of what I liked about that game here. But like I said, positioning and clarity was given the major focus. Something that's also really cool is that everything I complained about regarding gameplay and exploration in my original Like a Dragon video was also addressed. Even when it came to the map system, where selecting taxi locations, or more visual clarity for icons on the maps with all their information displayed for the player in case they forgot. Pound mates actually do way more than just one cool move. Certain pound mates have different properties and actually join you in battle for a few turns with their abilities. Not only that, support characters have been added that can help you outside of battle. It makes those characters feel more interconnected with the gameplay. A new mechanic that was added to the party members was the height meter. This allows for the tag team attacks, and depending on who you're with or who initiates the tag team, depends on the certain attacks that you will do. They're all unique and have their different properties, so you're encouraged to experiment with that height meter more, instead of just selecting the option when you have enough MP. It is not a static turn-based game where every battle is the same. This spices up every encounter in every environment. The development team made slight adjustments that makes the combat flow and feel way smoother. It feels like the major leap forward they did with the first and second Kiryu title, with keeping what worked and modifying the things that didn't. Speaking of which, new characters and jobs were added which spice up this new adventure. Now, Infinite Wealth takes place in Hawaii, so instead of hello work, say aloha to alo happy tours. Unfortunately, Hello Work had to let Ichiban go, but instead of applying for jobs and getting the chance to unlock them, in Hawaii, the team gets to experience the lovely city, and from there, they are inspired to become a fictitious persona. What's awesome is that revelation cutscenes are back in full force here, and this was the perfect way to make their return in the series. All of them have their charm, and it fits well with the tone of the game. You know, it's kinda crazy they didn't have them in 7. Heck, I think the last time these were in the game was 0. Bonds play a huge role in how you manage your jobs, because the stronger your bonds are with people, the more skill slots that opens, and you can now choose what skills you want to inherit from other jobs you have unlocked, further emphasizing player expression and customization. A lot of the new jobs include an action star, a desperado, an aquanaut, a pyro dancer, a samurai, a geodancer, a housekeeper, and some jobs from the original Like a Dragon Return, like chef, breaker, host, idol, and my favorite, the Night Queen.
When I think about Hawaii and Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, I can't believe I'm actually playing a Ryu ga Gotoku game in an environment that I've actually been in. This game reminds me of my beautiful trip to Hawaii back in 2019. And when it came to the city, streets, and especially the beaches, Hawaii looks beautiful, is huge and expansive, and filled with a lot of tourist traps, as well as back alleys with garbage thrown everywhere. It's paradise exactly as I remember it. When you have the contrast from the expensive resorts, the shops, or the crammed houses and apartments. Yeah, that's another aspect of Hawaiian culture people forget to put in. Another aspect of the exploration I really enjoyed is the party chats and bond chats are given more love, because each one of them is always fun to come around to, and if you get into a battle during one of them, instead of dropping the conversation, the cast members will pick up the conversation after the battle is finished. Nice little quality of life change. The new cast is really enjoyable to be around, as well as the old cast interacting with Kiryu. So much of your enjoyment can be found in the post-game, experiencing the content on offer. I want to emphasize, regardless of how negative I get about the game's story, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth is worth your time as a gameplay experience. There is a lot of game here. It's meaty, just like eating a Smile Burger and a Mega Beef Bowl at the same time.
Many of the side activities have been expanded upon now that Ichiban is in Hawaii, for multiple reasons. You got Crazy Delivery, where you collect food and deliver it to people. Mismatch, a dating app where you set up a dating profile and talk to women, maybe? Sicko Snap, a Pokemon Snap-like minigame, except it's the weird dudes in spandex, and more. You know the drill, it's an RGG game, but when it came to Ichiban's side activities, they put the major focus on two of them, those being Dodonko Island and the Sujimon League. Ichiban gets access to Dodonko Island, a run-down Hawaiian resort on a remote island that he gets to take control of. As you work around the island, you can clean it up, fish, collect bugs, gather resources, and fend off the pirates and garbage in the island to make it your own special resort. It's like a fully fledged Animal Crossing side game, because you're given an open field to adjust and decorate to your liking. And the people you say hello to and completing sub-stories with can be invited to the island. You can even share your own island online. Pretty exciting stuff. You also have the Sujimon League, which takes the Sujimon from the past game and makes an entire battle side game out of them. Throughout the world, you'll fight enemies and encounter raid enemies, and by beating them, you can recruit that Sujimon to be on your team and battle with you by giving them a gift and glazing the hell out of them by mashing A. From there, you participate in the league and battle with them to collect them all and become a Sujimon Master. Despite how cool and complex both of these side activities are, I never felt compelled to actually do them. They are major distractions, and while it's cool to see that they invested so much time into them, matter of fact, I heard in an interview that this was the hardest part of the game to implement, what does that leave me as a player when I was more interested in the story? And trust me, we will get to the story, but it's partly why I had to put the game down at a few points. My major issue with Infinite Wealth is that its pacing is bogged down by these mandatory side activities that overwhelm and exhaust the player. I understand that the developers introduce content to the player to check it out, but when you force the player to spend an entire chapter doing it rather than progressing the story, my question is why? Chapter 5 of the game was horribly paced because you are forced to do 3 full days of Dodonko Island, which was way too much. It takes up a majority of the chapter, and their excuse in the story is so bad. In previous games, if there was a major side activity, it would relate to the story a little bit, and you were only forced to do that game once. Heck, in a game like Yakuza 6, you can just skip clan creation entirely after the tutorial fight. The best they would do is introduce it, then give you the freedom to do the activity at your own leisure. This is gonna sound weird, but when you invest too much into a minigame, what stops me from going, oh, this is just lesser Animal Crossing, or oh, this is just lesser Pokemon or Yokai Watch? Most of the mini-games in RGG games parody short, fun, arcade-like experiences. You know, Crazy Taxi with Crazy Delivery, Harpoon Fishing in 6 is like Ocean Hunter, Dragon Kart, Mario Kart, so on and so forth. I enjoy doing those arcade-like mini-games because they're short and fun, so it makes me want to come back to do them over and over again. Maybe do one every play session, or maybe do it multiple times a play session to master it. Trying to be this ambitious with both of these side activities, in my opinion, was not the right call. And you're free to disagree with me, but that's just my thoughts. I did not want to go out of my way to do these activities. Matter of fact, every time I ran away from them. Because it creates a stigma against the activity when the player would have had more fun when it isn't forced upon them. Which happened to me when I beat the game and was able to fully enjoy these activities. However, the one side activity I really enjoyed and invested most of my time in, surprise surprise, the Dragon of Dojima, Kazuma Kiryu, is playable in this game. The plotline is that Kiryu has cancer, and his side activities is a giant lump of fan service. And I'm not talking TNA. Oh, by the way, you can visit strip clubs instead of hostess clubs in this game. I kind of forgot to mention that. Yay! This major side activity actually ties into the story because Kiryu, with his friends, or Ichiban's friends, made a bucket list of all the things that he wants to do before the Dragon of Dojima becomes a legend. The more you explore Kamurocho and Yokohama with Kiryu, he will reminisce about places and past characters from the series, and what he thinks of them. Furthermore, he has his own additional sub-stories regarding reoccurring characters from other sub-stories from the past games. And this is the highest quality story-rich content in the entire game. Seeing the emotional impact Kiryu left upon these characters. A few of the stories actually made me tear up because seeing these characters after so long and how they've grown from their experiences was so cathartic. Furthermore, Date meets up with major characters from the past Ryuga Gotoku games, and we get to see how they're doing as well. This part of the game felt like this is where the true passion and heart of it was. I wanted to see everything here. I wanted to grind soul points to unlock Date's links. Just like Kiryu, who acts like he isn't interested, we want to do it anyway because there's a clear reward for doing the bucket list. It's a reminder that even when someone kicks the bucket, they can rest peacefully knowing that they aren't truly gone. Also, did you know they added Spike Out, Virtua Fighter 3 TB, and SEGA Bass Fishing? Now, I could do an entire video on SEGA Bass Fishing because this game is so fucking based, but let me spoil it for you.
10 out of 10, and it easily earns the badass seal of approval.
Spike Out and Virtua Fighter 3 TB also have multiplayer options. So that means if you have 4 controllers, you can play Spike Out with 4 players on the same console. But all things considered, isn't it kind of questionable that SEGA hasn't done a classic arcade collection yet? You know, these games in the Yakuza series is nice, but I would buy a separate release containing all the games that have been in the SEGA arcades in the series, and including much more that they can possibly put in. So SEGA, get on that. I know you got your 5-game revival plan. This is another way to get these old franchises back in the public eye. And you can possibly put Wild Riders in it. I mean, what? Excuse me, I'm gonna move on. When it came to the tunes of Infinite Wealth, originally I was gonna be very negative on it, but on a second listen, I actually really enjoyed the soundtrack. I'm not gonna play tunes like I usually do because I would rather discuss rather than just show for now. Many of the game's tracks are of great quality and differ for most encounters. However, my major issue is that the game story-wise plays the same tracks over and over again, specifically during Ichiban's story. There are only so many times I can hear Pelicana dance before it gets annoying. But despite that, it's a very original soundtrack that looking back I really enjoyed. And as a bonus, there are less remixes in the game than usual. One of my favorite encounters in the game, which I am not spoiling, which was expected to have a remix theme, has a newly done original track. So yes, the soundtrack is fantastic. However, when it came to the English karaoke, I have one major question.
What the fuck happened here?
I know I praised the English karaoke in Like a Dragon 7. However, in Infinite Wealth, the quality took a huge nosedive. Whoever at SEGA is forcing major autotune for these voices needs to take a step back. The translations are okay, however, I cannot get over how bad most of these covers are. Even the actors who can sing are ruined by the addition of autotune.
Find something else to do. I won't stick around, no.
7 felt more reserved in autotune, but with the addition of the new voice for Kazuma Kiryu, they went overboard and they couldn't even save it.
Justice, we're brave.
Did I like any of the new songs? Absolutely. The new karaoke songs were good, it's just that the dubbed versions of these songs were really bad. So, I played this game on my Xbox Series X. Yes, I don't have a PS5. I'm not gonna pretend like I know technical stuff like I did in my Yakuza 6 PC video,
as well as anisotropic filtering.
Anisotropic filtering!
but I will say, load times are instantaneous and I don't have to think about them too much. What sucks is that if you're playing on much powerful hardware, is that you miss out on these cool taxi loading screens. But hey, you load way faster. This game still looks pretty good, no frame drops, but that's also because the Dragon engine has been being used since 2016, so we're close to a decade with the engine. But hey, it's better than Unreal Engine, right Ishin Kiwami? And for transparency, like previously stated in the beginning of the video, I did receive an Xbox code for the game, and it was the Ultimate Edition, and all the DLC was included. Now, the most disappointing thing about the DLC is that there are still jobs locked behind paywalls. Footballer and tennis. Just like Kunoichi and Demon from Like a Dragon, they feel like content that was just taken out and sold separately. Furthermore, New Game Plus was also locked behind a paywall. SEGA, you have got to be kidding me. What are you doing? Why are you cheating your customers like this? Just so they can play the game again with their stats and items? Literally any other game doesn't charge you for New Game Plus. They don't do this because it's part of the experience. They release it as a free update. They don't charge you extra money just to play the game again. I don't care if you balance the game around a clear save file with powerful enemies, that's no excuse to charge for a basic feature. Also, you did it really because you made certain fights even harder, because those party members also have the terrible equipment they started out with. And well, since we're on the topic of being negative, let's talk about the story. So Infinite Wealth starts off actually very strong with one of the most bombastic and exciting introductions to a video game that I have ever seen. Literally, it gets you excited seeing Ichiban and his friends again, and for the new adventure ahead. It branches off Like a Dragon story by picking up on the themes it left off on. All of our heroes have benefited from their accomplishments from the previous game, as Ichiban Kasuga is now known as the hero Yokohama, and is helping rehabilitate former Yakuza members get jobs with their unique skills. It's nice to see everyone again after 3 years, and the snazzy opening really gets you ready for the upcoming and exciting adventure that's about to take place. But due to his work, a VTuber known as Tatora Hirosoka, who runs the Tatora channel, blackmails him by taking footage out of context and publicly shaming him, causing Ichiban and his friends to lose their newfound jobs. Also, he fumbles the bag royally with Sayako, as on their first date, he asks her to marry him. And she hasn't talked to him in over a year. So, now what? Well, after finding out what the former Yakuza will be doing without his help, Sawashiro takes him to venture to Hawaii to find and reunite with his mother Akane. But as he arrives, he realizes that this little vacation is gonna be much harder than he originally thought it would be. First off, the beginning hooks you immediately. Seeing the trio reunite when Ichiban lifts up his Excalibur from his shelf was nostalgic, and I could relate to Ichiban's plight when it came to the Tatora channel. What Tatora did to Kasuga was unfair, and they took footage out of context and made a hit piece in order to slander him and make him a target of harassment. There's a lot of mystery boxes being set up, and you're excited to see where the story goes from there, especially since our heroes are back at rock bottom again. Sure, when you're down, the only way is to go up. However, if you've been constantly knocked down, what is there left to do? Will you go back to the wrongdoings of your past, or choose to forgive those who hurt you? As Ichiban goes to Hawaii, he meets two new characters. A taxi driver named Eric Tomizawa, this happened to my buddy Eric, and a woman named Chitoshi Fujinomiya. Both of them immediately introduce themselves by screwing our happy-go-lucky tourist by robbing him and stripping him of his clothes. He also runs into Kazuma Kiryu, who was lucky to run into him via an assignment from Like a Dragon Gaiden. So if you played Like a Dragon Gaiden, you'll know why he's here. This cast is our original four, and the game does a fantastic job starting off with them. With Eric being our lost man turned friend, Chitose a rich girl who fights for justice, and Kiryu, our mentor. However, it's revealed that the Dragon of Dojima is currently knocking on death's door because he has cancer. When I first heard about this, I thought that it would originally be for shock and awe. And for the case of gameplay, it kinda is. But for the story, it's taken with the emotional gravity that it deserves. He gets less involved in Ichiban's story, and that branches off to him leaving Hawaii and finding a new crew, which was the old Yokohama crew. Unironically, seeing Kiryu interact with the cast of Like a Dragon was pretty surprising, but I enjoyed this way more than I thought I would. Namba is seen as a caretaker, and Sonhee makes her debut as a party member, which I can tell was a missed opportunity from the last game, but here she shines through with her interactions with Kiryu. If it was Ichiban she was with, I don't think she would have been as interesting, but with Kiryu, she's like a serious leader that's head over heels to be beside the Dragon in Dojima. It's adorable and I kinda ship it. One of my favorite moments in series history actually happens in this part of the game, with Kiryu when he's at the Survive Bar, and to kick off his bucket list, he sings karaoke all night, with the song that started his journey while Ichiban's crew carries him on.
Breaking the law, breaking the world, tenderness, breaking the loop. 六法全書じゃ縛れない波乱分子さ振り上げた握り拳が俺たちのジャッジメント
You'll be happy to know that some of the same practices for voice recording for Like a Dragon were also done with Infinite Wealth. PCB also got bigger talents for the English dub, like Danny Trejo and Daniel Day Kim. And while I was originally really excited about this, I have to say I walked away from Infinite Wealth's English dub quite disappointed. But I feel the initial spark of performances isn't there anymore. Many of the actors do a fine enough job as their characters, but I always feel in certain scenes and deliveries the directing feels off. It doesn't feel as authentic as the previous game. I don't know how to describe it, maybe someone else can, but Greg Chun's Namba in the early game sounded like there was a 50-50 chance his delivery is going to be off in every other line. While I was playing the game, I actually switched between English and Japanese audio between chapters from chapter 6 going onward. And it's because I guess I shouldn't beat around the bush anymore. Okay, I can finally say it for the record. Yang Ye was horribly miscast as the role of Kazuma Kiryu. I've been meaning to say it ever since I heard Gaiden's dub, and how they horribly elongated his line at the final boss in that game.
I think you ought to know that well enough by now.
So it isn't a huge shocker to everyone watching that I really don't like it. Kiryu as a character at this point is an old man who has been through a lot. Getting a young actor to portray him is already a red flag because you can tell he's faking the voice. He doesn't have the inflections needed to give him that edge or deliver a performance that can convince me that's what he sounds like. When you hear Kuroda, his voice just demands that he's someone important. I don't hear that with Yang. I hear someone trying his hardest to be a tough guy, which was his last role in a Ryu ga Gotoku game with Lost Judgment. You know, the Kaido Files, where he actually was perfectly casted. Getting Kiryu back was a huge fan service for 7, and I assume there's way more they have to do because they needed an actor that had a larger schedule. But there could have been other options. Kiryu was a great actor for Kiryu, and under great direction, he was able to convince me, yeah, that's what Kiryu would have sounded like if he spoke English.
Good. I'll take it.
If you take a look at the direction for Like a Dragon, characters didn't fully emulate the Japanese actors, especially when it came to their accents. They weren't trying to sound like them, but they gave really good performances. For example, Osakin characters, they had literally any other dialect that the actor could do better. So you still got a good performance with the natural dialect that they could offer. And for Kiryu went a simple but effective tough guy approach. In doing so, he gave a more memorable performance because of it. It also helped that his role in that game was smaller too. Yang Ye is trying to emulate Kuroda, and he ends up falling flat because rather than fully embodying the character of Kiryu, he's trying to copy someone else's and failing miserably at it. As you remember when I reviewed Like a Dragon, I went off on how much I enjoyed the last part of the game. Unfortunately, I'm not going to share that excitement because when it comes to Infinite Wealth, looking back at it, it made a weaker video without any criticism of the story. And in my opinion, Infinite Wealth needs this criticism. The game commits a lot of sins that RGG has been known for, but due to the scale of the game, is way more noticeable. Many plot threads and mysteries are set into the player's mind, but the payoff to these plot threads and mysteries are always so lackluster. Characters disappear and come back in the story way later, and you're expected to care because of the element of surprise. Are there great things about the story that I enjoyed? Well, some actually. Something I noticed throughout the story was the game's major theme of forgiveness, and that's shown throughout many characters in the story. In order to talk about it, are you ready for the spoiler section? Well, here's the timestamp. Oh. 3, 2, 1. I'll say this. Infinite Wealth has a lot of themes. Some are done better than others, but the main theme of forgiveness is shown through Ichiban and his treatment of the characters around him. He realizes that his infinite wealth is the friends that he makes along the way. With Chitose, Her relationship with Ichiban starts off rocky, and you later understand why. Realistically, it would be really hard to forgive anyone who steals my clothes and leaves me nude in Hawaii while everyone thinking I'm crazy, but due to his circumstances, he still trusts Chitose like he would any of his friends. Ichiban was always willing to give everyone the benefit of the doubt, and that saves him multiple times throughout the story. I really didn't understand why people didn't like her so much because she was struggling to tell the truth. I mean, if you were in her position, wouldn't you do the same when you got such a leash against you, as well as someone who could potentially destroy your life and well-being? I don't blame her for any of the actions she took in the story. Matter of fact, early in the game, when she sees Ichiban's trust in her, that's what makes her decide to make the right decisions. Through Ichiban's kindness, she wanted to do right by him, and she was willing to change sides on a hat in order to help Ichiban. So I have no qualms with her, and I get why that theme was done that way. However, while I do like Chitose and her story, she does not compare to the Cookie Monster.
Yutaka Yamai is the best character in the fucking game, and he needs to return in a spin-off or sequel.
Look, if I'm gonna glaze something from this game's story, it's gotta be Yamai. He has a cool-ass character design, a sharp-ass crowbar, great-ass voice, awesome-ass boss fights, banger-ass theme, and incredible-ass backstory. He has no ass, but he makes up for it for being a hard-ass badass. Okay, going back to review mode, Yamai is the best antagonist in the game, and his development around him eventually becoming a helper to Ichiban and having this one-note backstory that follows him through the theming of infinite wealth. He's in a constant state of having chills and why he wears his jacket like that. I had my theory of the reason why he helps people like Ichiban is that every kind of act he does, it makes him feel warm inside. Is why he has his odd job crew, who is also willing to hide and protect Ichiban's mama. He also didn't lay a hand on Kiryu because he respects him so much when he was injured, and why he helps Ichiban out in the story. His kindness reminds him of how he used to be, and in his final moments of the game, when he confronts Yui Tabata, his former lover, someone who he was willing to kill her own husband to be with, and even after he got thrown under the bus to rot, and looks at her current state of Alzheimer's disease, he does the strongest thing a man could ever do. He forgives her and gives her his coat because she was feeling cold. He was willing to do anything for her, and he was getting warmer anyway.
Anything for you.
It's actually kind of funny to get a retread of the Majima and Saejima fight, but with Daigo into the mix, and the fact that it's part of the Kiryu plotline makes for one of the best bosses in the entire series. One really cool aspect of Kiryu's gameplay is that he has his 3 unique styles from Yakuza 0, and can break the rules of the turn-based combat. And that's used not only to give you a 1-up in battle, but in the battle with Majima, Saejima, and Daigo, that prompt comes up to have one final brawl where the memories of each one of them passes by while you're fighting. And for every single one of them, their unique theme actually plays during this segment. It's fucking peak.
I wish I could have this much excitement for every other character in the story, but through Infinite Wealth, I wasn't that motivated to finish it as much as the other titles in the series. I had this thought during the big twist in Chapter 10, where major plot threads are unveiled. Infinite Wealth is lacking an intriguing hook or goal the more you keep playing. It had one at the beginning where the setup, getting the band back together, and the initial trek to Hawaii got me, but then it just falls flat when all the answers to all those questions that were initially hinted at are revealed. Yakuza 0 had most of the same problems too, but that game made up for it with its impactful moments and its characters. It would lose you, but then there would be that one memorable cutscene that would bring you back in. Infinite Wealth lacks these, and a major reason why I wasn't fully hooked throughout the game.
In the previous game, I enjoyed the contrast between Masato Arakawa and Ichiban because it made for a stronger and personal tale.
And while Infinite Wealth wanted to try to do that with Ichiban, it falls flat because there's no major rival throughout the game. So that leads to Infinite Wealth having weak and underdeveloped villains. Going back to the Zero comparison, you have some of the same problems with Payoff being weak and taking forever for the story to get moving. But then in Zero, you had characters like Kuze, Shibusawa, Awano, and hell, I'll throw Laogai in there. There would be that cool fight or hype moment in the story that would bring you right back, and because these characters were built as obstacles the player would have to overcome, aka rivals. Infinite Wealth has none of these for their villains, and most of them are a non-presence until the latter half of the game. You think I'm supposed to care or be afraid of Dwight after his encounter in Chapter 4 when he reappears in the big twist in Chapter 10? After Tomizawa made him piss his pants? Characters like Wanto are introduced and we're like, cool, awesome. Then they disappear until their inevitable death, and by that point you don't care. And Bryce was way too distant from our characters to feel like a major threat or a guy who means business. Yamai is the only consistent presence throughout the game, and I already glazed him. But someone like Eiji? Eiji is a character I really wanted to like, but ended up becoming apathetic towards him. So he, as a character, starts off interesting because he's presented in a wheelchair just like Masato. So that already gave him a connection toward Ichiban. And it's an interesting ploy he uses against Ichiban. However, he as a character just disappears until the plot needs him. His excuse is being there in secret for his big reveal. And when his cards are revealed, he just starts acting like a supervillain, fails his plan, and then is only seen at the end of the game parading the game's message about forgiveness. He's never shown that moment of realization, this doesn't count, or why he's on the run after you see him for the last time. No one knows who he is, and it's not really implied that he was abandoned or there was a fallout, leaving the audience to fill in the blanks. His whole segment in the bar with Lonnie was just so confusing, drumming up melodrama with a pipe bomb that was so obvious it wasn't going to explode because the game would be over if it did. Now, I'm not saying that Ichiban shouldn't forgive Eiji for what he did. That part of the plot makes sense. He was the first man to help him out in Hawaii even though he had his own intentions, and Ichiban has so much patience with people that he's willing to do so. And through him, he was willing to see the errors of his ways. However, those moments of realization are missing. Some people argue that there might have been a time skip between the final boss and Ichiban meeting Eiji, but I don't buy that because they parallel Kiryu being sent over to the hospital over the scene as well, implying that both of these events are happening at the same time. It's like they built this character knowing where to start, what twists to have, and then his ending without filling in the blanks. Look, Ryuga Gotoku Studios, please do not write your games like I write my scripts. And it's clear to me that you do because in a recent interview Bandai Dendeki Online, Yokoyama actually went off about the criticisms of the story. And most of his excuses were just played off or like, oh, we shouldn't have a fight with Eiji. I'm not asking for a fight with Eiji or any boss fight. All I'm asking is that you should have given us more context to his story or how he ended up the way he did from this moment to that moment. Now, Bryce makes a good first impression as the leader of Palikana, and mysteriously has all these weird superpowers. But apparently he's not the true heir to the throne as a girl named Lonnie is supposed to be, and it's why Ichi's mom is on the run, hiding and protecting her. One confusing cutscene that happened was this big flashback after Kiryu learns about Lonnie and why she's on the run. In his dreams, he parallels her to Haruka, and from there you can understand how that makes him feel and the pain he has. However, this is never brought up again because they never interact till the very end of the game. And it's Ichiban doing all the heroics. Which makes sense as Bryce is causing his mother's pain, but it excites the audience with nothing to follow as Kiryu goes into his storyline with Ebina. Some people try to connect how Bryce was the opposite of Ichiban, with him using his kindness and forgiveness to recruit people to his cause, while Bryce was using a fake religion to recruit people, but that doesn't really work and is a simplification of their parallels, especially because Bryce was gaslighting people from birth to make sure they're following his cause, to be a sacrificial and become mass murderers. Ichiban was about changing people, but Bryce was more about growing these kids up to be his followers. He's really just a big bad cult leader that just wants to rule over Hawaii, nothing deeper than that. A run-of-the-mill villain that's just the villain.
When I switched over to Kiryu's finale, I was actually locked in for the ending of Infinite Wealth. While I thought that 6 would be the last time I'd be climbing the Millennium Tower with Kiryu, we do it one more time here. And during this segment, there's a remix of Receive You called Receive and Believe You. And this one's probably one of the best ones. And I was pumped during this segment. Ebina is waiting for me, and I'm ready to go and take him down.
And Ebina, a man who has a fantastic voice actor in both English and Japanese, a fantastic backstory, and a fantastic boss theme with a great title to it. But when thinking about it, what do you mean by the end of denial? Ebina makes no sense as Kiryu being his end goal. A man who is directly affected by Masumi Arakawa's actions and despises him and the Yakuza for it. And that's why he wants to tear down Ichiban's reputation. A good branch off from Masato, and it's kind of interesting that the series hasn't really done a villain like him yet. However, despite all these grudges and setups he has against Ichiban, Kiryu ends up fighting, listening to his Yap story, and takes on the sins of the Yakuza and apologizes that he should have done more to send the Yakuza in the right direction. And I'm like, what? Kiryu's apology makes no sense, because even if he led the Yakuza mantle, not much would have changed about Ebina and his hatred toward the Yakuza. He was fourth chairman for 10 minutes and was involved with the Tojo clan multiple times throughout the games, and they still committed the heinous acts that they did. When Kiryu wasn't involved with the Tojo clan, it fell apart and got weaker in power. This was shown in Yakuza 2, Yakuza 5, and Yakuza 7, where without Kiryu's influence, everyone else was picking up scraps and the Tojo clan got weaker in power. Which is what Ebina would have wanted, since the Tojo were the root of his problems. So many people wanted to dogpile on 6's ending where the final letter was to Daigo. But in the context of the rest of the games, it actually made a ton of sense, where Daigo was left to fend on his own without any guidance or Kiryu's influence. And he made a ton of mistakes in his run. Kiryu did have the right to apologize for that, because things would have been different if he did take up the Tojo mantle and was there for Daigo to help him lead. He would have made fewer mistakes or would have pushed back on a few of his decisions. Here, Kiryu isn't responsible at all for the way Ebina ended up. Matter of fact, it's not Kiryu that Ebina talks about in his final cutscene, it's Ichiban. You know, his stepbrother, the one who idolized Arakawa, both characters created from the result of his actions, where one used the workforce to rehabilitate the Yakuza as model citizens so that he can help people, and the other did so he can destroy all of them due to his hatred. So it makes no sense why Kiryu is the one delivering these lines when the character that should be doing so is directly connected to where his hatred lies. And guess what? Yokoyama knew this and did it anyway. In that same recent article I mentioned with the story of Infinite Wealth, Yokoyama admits that there was no point in Kiryu apologizing to Ebina. You can make your excuse about how he thinks back on his life, but for people who have played the series since 2005, they know that no matter what Kiryu would have done, wouldn't have changed how the clan ended up. But wait, why didn't Ichiban fight Ebina? The official reason is that Ebina isn't angry at Ichiban for being his half-brother, and Ichiban wants to help people, and his true opponent was Eiji. And according to Yokoyama, this is a good resolution. It's not good, Yokoyama. It's contradictory to what the character is, even at this state in his life. These stories have so much untapped potential, and you made this decision that lessens the impact it would have had. So it's not good. It could have been way better. Oh, it's also because we created crazy big bosses in the story and it would make no sense for Kiryu to fight them. Instead of distributing them logically in the story, let's just squeeze them in the finale for Ichiban because we couldn't find a place to put them. Now thinking about it, why didn't the rest of Kiryu's crew go to Hawaii? I mean, they have their own Hawaiian outfits, you show them off in promotional material, and like I mentioned before, it's confusing why we get two goofy giant creature fights back to back. I mean, Yokoyama also had this idea of making a weird final boss which encompasses the masses of social media inspired by the Stay Puft Marshmallow from Ghostbusters. Never thought I'd read that in my life. Who knows what ideas RGG has for their stories now. But after coming off from two of their best stories, I expected more than just a good resolution. Especially for a sequel of one of my favorite games of all time. You can't just make part of your story good and then half-ass the rest and say that was your best. Infinite Wealth's gameplay is polished and it can keep you entertained for so many hours. But its storyline felt like it was haphazardly put together with so many cuts, rewrites, and forgotten dialogue. I feel like part of it has to do with stretching the team to release 3 games within a year's time. Not saying more manpower would have worked, but the haphazardness of Infinite Wealth feels like it has to do with it. When apparently Like a Dragon Gaiden was originally going to be part of Infinite Wealth as its own chapter. Probably explains why Hanawa was completely underused in Infinite Wealth's story, where all he does here is have a few lines and die. Oh, and Wangto too. He just has a cool event from one chapter, a change of sides, and then boom, gone from the rest of the game till his death. And in my opinion, Kiryu's tale ending like this kind of cheapens 6's ending. Not in the happy ending, which I was surprised I wasn't as emotionally pulled in. I wasn't wowed or crying or anything. I just kind of blankly watched when I was trying to figure out what I was watching. An older Haruka and Haruto visiting Kiryu and him regaining his name was nice, but it feels like the emotional conclusion to a different game rather than the penultimate ending of Infinite Wealth. Oh right, speaking of the penultimate ending, the Sayako plotline. Jesus, before release this raised some red flags. But one of the most marketed plot threads was Ichiban fumbling the bag, and at the end it finally gets a resolution with Ichiban saying he loves Sayako. Great, he learned his lesson. But he doesn't, and it's played for laughs. He pulls out a I Love Sayako shirt, and it's all supposed to be like this, oh haha, Ichiban doesn't get it, he doesn't get love, haha, teehee. We waited 60 hours to get this plot thread, and then you drop the ball like that. I'm not laughing, RGG. You're gonna tug us around for 60 hours trying to see what's behind this mystery box, and if it's gonna happen, but then you pull the rug and it's nothing. This isn't just, critical of RGG. This is awful writing that leaves a sour taste in my mouth. This just makes the audience angry and leaves us frustrated as fans. If you want to do it, just go through with it and bring interesting dynamics for the next game. But the thing I hate most is stagnation, where nothing moves forward. I'm not mad at Sayako for her actions. I'm angrier at the writers, because they want Ichi to experience the awful sub-story dates that no one liked in 7, and even more people didn't like in 8 because of the implied subtext. Finally, the story section is done. It's rare when a game I love leaves me this conflicted. In recent memory, past games that have done so have either been utter abominations or had a ton of missed opportunities. However, when it came to 2024's Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, it feels really wrong saying that. Because this game is good. Really good. I was thoroughly enjoying myself, and despite that, it didn't impact me as I thought it would. While Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth gave me a gameplay experience I will never forget, I was needing more from its story to truly consider it one of the best Like a Dragon games. And this definitely wasn't it. The story and its finale left me sour, and after waiting this long, and now knowing how they were cooking that story, it left me even more disappointed. Maybe it also has something to do with trying to juggle multiple releases in a year, which for the company, the net worth was probably worth it. But for me, the player, it left me not rushing to want more.
Maybe instead of focusing on being the most ambitious title in the series, focus on delivering a story that sticks with us.
I don't like when a series promises changes and then decides to stagnate in the areas it already innovated on. There were pushes forward, but we took some steps back. Having the previous protagonist again didn't help when this is clearly an Ichiban game. When I played Gaiden, I wasn't too keen on the gameplay, but man, that soundtrack, those characters, that story and tragic ending, that stuck with me and makes me want to go back and maybe revisit it. But whenever I think of Infinite Wealth, all I can think about is a blank wall.
With you might take to it. But when it comes to Infinite Wealth's gameplay, all things considered with all the content on offer, maybe it is the best in the series. This game reminds me of a video game that released all the way back in 2015 called Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. Holy shit, MGS5 is going to be 9 years old this year. Now, Metal Gear Solid 5 was a controversial title when it came to its story. How it was unfinished, badly paced, and reminded some players of their worst games ever. But the general public opinion of MGS5 was the fact that, yeah, the story was bad, but the gameplay experience was top of the line. There was so much creativity built on top of the mechanics, and that's what many people took away from it. And when people say it's their favorite in the series, it's not because of the story. It was just because it was a damn fun game. And while doing the post-game, catching up on side stories that I skipped, finding new things you can do, and, believe it or not, even new cutscenes in the post-game, I came to the conclusion that Infinite Wealth is just a damn fun game. Now, I'm not saying that the story in Infinite Wealth is as bad as Metal Gear Solid 5's. Just to clarify, I think Infinite Wealth has the better story. If you want me to consider it as one of the best Like a Dragon games, I just say both story and gameplay have to combine to make it a really good cohesive whole. However, if it's your favorite in the series, don't feel afraid in expressing that. There's a ton to enjoy with Ichiban and his friends in Hawaii.
But hey, this game came out in January. However, it's summer, y'all. Let's get into that summertime groove.
After 8 years, I got the Balti Fest, but my crush kicked me to the curb. I poured my heart in that love letter. She tore it up, put my feelings through the shredder. Our relationship, it won't get better. She left me before I could forget her.
So, you know that girl you like's got a boyfriend? I hear he's captain of the soccer team and hot and smart and athletic. He's like the whole package, the perfect 10 out of 10. You're not even the same league, dude.
It's fun! Don't mind. Summertime groove!
I'm really sorry. I feel bad. I do.
Yeah, I went through something awful, you know?
You had your eyes on her for so long, but everybody else did too. Apparently, those two are going 4 years strong.
Really? 4 years? It's been that long.
How could someone be this damn slow? Even a jerk like you ought to know. No need to go and cry. Deep down, you're a good guy.
You need to get your mind off things. I know. How about a trip to Hawaii? Let's go.
So grab your towel and dry off your tears.
This great thing ever gonna leave me
Now
be.
move your feet. Just get down and dance.
But now I'm feeling that trip to
Summer's
Hawaii.
here. Let's hit the beach and flirt with some babes.
Think I could pet some doggos too?
Maybe there's a chance you'll meet your soulmate.
You know, I'm kinda getting
Go
into this
on,
now.
Make your move. Get into that stupid time groove. Shitty time groove. Summertime groove.
Boy! It's fun! Don't mind.
Summertime groove!